5 phrasal verbs that we are going to cover today. Set up, run into, point out, catch up, and carry out. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Syntax English with me, Jessica. Today we're going to be going through 5 essential phrasal verbs that you should know as a software developer or as a team lead. Now, little bit of a disclaimer alert with phrasal verbs. Remember to treat a phrasal verb as a completely new word that you have to learn and not as an extension of a verb, because the meaning with a phrasal verb changes completely. What I also want to say with this is please pay attention and see if these are actually going to be phrasal verbs that you are going to use. If you feel like you're not going to use it, then why remember it? Remember, we're wanting vocabulary to be active and not necessarily passive. Let's jump in. A phrasal verb is a verb combined with a particle, and this creates a whole new meaning. For example, if we have a look at the word look up. Look up, yes, can mean look up. If we consider look up in the idiomatic or the figurative form, look up means to search for information. It has a completely different meaning to look up. And this is why I say phrasal verbs are whole new words for you to try and learn. 5 phrasal verbs that we are going to cover today. Set up, run into, point out, catch up, and carry out. So what are we waiting for? If you're ready, let's go. Set up means to prepare or to configure something. For example, can you set up the new server environment today? Now, let's take that example and let's break it down a little bit. What we have after the phrasal verb set up is a noun or a noun phrase, the new server environment. This means that set up in this situation is transitive because it has an object directly following it. Let's see if set up in this situation is separable, meaning we can separate the verb and the particle. Can you set the new server environment up today? It sounds okay, doesn't it? What this means is setup is separable, meaning we can put a noun between set and up. Just a quick question for you. Think about this at the end. What is the past of setup? Run into. Run into means that you have, or we have, encountered a problem. We ran into some issues with deployment. Now, in this situation, run into is transitive because it's followed by an object, some issues, it is a noun. But ran some issues into, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't make sense in this situation. So run into in this specific situation is non-separable. Remember that run is an irregular verb, meaning we run into issues, we ran into issues, and we have run into issues. That third form goes back to run. English, who knows? Point out. Now, to point, I am pointing at you. I see you. But in this situation, we're not pointing, but we are highlighting or mentioning something that is important. For example, I'd like to point out that this change will impact users. With point out, with this definition, it is transitive, meaning that it is followed by a noun. Let me give you a different sentence. He pointed out my mistake. My mistake is a noun or an object or a noun phrase in this situation. Point out can also be separable, meaning he pointed my mistake out to me. I just also want to add as an FYI, for your information, if you didn't know, when we use point out and we follow it by an object pronoun, meaning him, her, it, them, so on, we are always going to put object pronoun between the verb and the particle. So he pointed it out to me, not he pointed out it to me. Even me trying to say it, my brain gets confused. To update or reach the same level as someone, we use the phrasal verb catch up. For example, let's catch up tomorrow and discuss the project. Catch up, again, followed by an object, meaning that it is transitive. The separability of catch up is debatable. What I mean by that is, generally with the objects, you are not going to catch up. You are not going to catch tomorrow up. It doesn't work in that situation. However, when we are talking about somebody or someone, then we can separate it. Can you catch him up? Or can you catch Susan up? Then it's okay. But the rest of the time, we're going to keep it non-separable. Last but not least, before your brain is completely overwhelmed by all of these phrases, carry out means to perform or complete tasks. We need to carry out extensive testing before release, meaning we need to do a lot of tests before we release this date because we don't know if it's going to work properly. This is a perfect example where you can see that carry out is transitive, meaning it's followed by a noun phrase. Extensive testing is actually a noun in the sense, but is it separable? Well, let me say the phrase again. We need to carry extensive testing out before release. Does it sound okay? If you said yes, ding, 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 you are right. We can separate carry and out. Let's go through a quick dialogue that can happen in any work situation. The team lead asks, have you set up the test environment yet? The developer says, I ran into a few problems. Catch up with you after lunch and point out the exact issue to our team lead. And he says, great. After that, let's carry out a quick test. What I do want to say in this situation, when the developer says, I'll catch up with you after lunch, please note that this is a little bit informal and it depends on the relationship that you have with your team lead. Meaning that if you're comfortable with him or with her and you have that good relationship, they are not going to be offended by that. However, if you are in a situation where you do speak a little bit more formally at work, let's not use catch up like that. You might offend them. Was it? Learning 5 new phrasal verbs in a very short amount of time. My homework for you in this upcoming week is to try and practice and put in those phrasal verbs into work situations that you are currently going through. Also, pay attention to how often people around you are using the phrasal verbs. If you realize that they're not using them very often, then maybe it's not a phrasal verb that is very important for you to learn. However, if you realize that they are using these phrasal verbs a lot, well, that means that you need to add it to your active vocabulary. And as always, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I do appreciate it. Let me know. What phrasal verbs do you struggle with the most? And please don't answer all of them. I cannot cover all the phrasal verbs. There are so many of them. But mention 1 or 2 and I will see what I can do. And as always, I will see you in the next.